Let's get more on that story now. Britain's energy regulator on course to have a bit of a clash with the big six power companies over the significance of wholesale gas and electricity prices. Matthew Osborne is a former senior economist at Ofgem. He joins us now from Manchester tonight. Matthew Osborne, good to talk to you. Give us a bit more of an idea about the prices and the price hikes recently. Most of us are pretty shocked to find that our dual fuel bills are going up by 10% on average across the country, but should we be surprised?
Well, hi Jeremy. I think that's a really good question. I think we've seen obviously 4 of the big 6 over the past couple of weeks raise their energy prices by about sort of 10% on average. And that seems to be a general sort of consistent theme. We've sort of seen those kind of typical price rises over the past few years, and I think that the general sort of price path for energy prices over the next couple of years seems to look to sort of keep on that same kind of pathway, I think.
They've largely suggested that it's the increases in wholesale prices, the wholesale costs that are having to be passed on to the customers, but Ofgem's obviously put a bit of a spanner in the spokes here and suggested that their profit margins are going up a great deal more than wholesale prices. What is the reality?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So Ofgem basically launched its most recent piece of analysis today that basically said that energy companies' profit margins have doubled over the past year. So they've moved from about £40 per customer to about sort of £90, £95 per customer. That's obviously quite a significant increase over the past year. But I think to put that into perspective, they have started off from quite a low base, and they're probably just beginning to rise back up to their kind of longer term average. And I think if we put that into context, that's probably about sort of between 5 and 7% as a profit margin, as a return. And if you look at other sort of businesses, other kind of industries like the retail sector, for example, they earn similar kind of profit margins.
What are their costs? And I mean, what are the costs that are going up for them? The wholesale costs we're talking about that appear to be partly getting moved on to us, the customer, but clearly it doesn't, as you say, account for the whole of the increase in the profit margin.
Yeah, I mean, I think a large chunk of that, or an increasing proportion of that cost now, are things like government taxes and government levies for green initiatives. So things like costs for cavity wall and loft insulation. All of those kind of sort of green initiatives are increasingly part of a customer's bill, and that's adding further pricing pressure on a lot of these energy suppliers.
Is it possible to say what is a fair price for the fuel requirements we have for the gas and electricity in our homes? Most of us think it's unfair, of course, we're bound to, aren't we? But are we being charged about a fair price at the moment, or has it got a bit out of hand?
Well, I think one of the things that energy suppliers have to do is really price at a sort of cost-reflective price. And if we return back to this argument about their profit margins, they make between 5 and 7%. I think the question really is that comparable with other industries? If that is completely, disparate to other industries, if other industries are earning far lower profit margins, then perhaps energy suppliers are profiteering unfairly. But if it's consistent with other kind of industries and other businesses, then I think that's about reasonable, and that's probably about fair.
I suppose most of us thought that the whole idea of Ofgem was to keep an eye on it all and make sure that we're getting a fair deal as the customers. Do they really have much sway, much power over the big energy companies, really?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously, Ofgem's primary remit is to ensure that customers pay a fair and reasonable price. But beyond that, really, sort of Ofgem does kind of sort of lack any kind of punitive measures that they can slap on these energy suppliers. And Ofgem has been sort of criticised in recent history for having a bark but lacking real bite and lacking real teeth. And I think that's still the case today, that even if they found that energy suppliers were making abnormal profits, what could they really do? Well, they can't really do much. They can probably refer the issue up to government and to the Competition Commission. But beyond that, there's nothing that Ofgem, the regulator, can really do.
Just one more thought on this. I suppose if Ofgem hasn't got a lot of power, the customer's main power is to change a supplier if they don't like it. But the truth is here, it's a bit of a stitch-up, isn't it? If you move around the main six, the big six, the prices are all pretty much the same. They all seem to be in the mode of putting up their prices by pretty much the same. You haven't got a lot of bargaining power as a household customer, have you?
I think that's a really fair point, actually, that although we have 6 major energy suppliers, the pricing differences between them isn't very significant, and people have argued that actually the market isn't particularly competitive. And until we see energy companies really pricing at very different pricing levels, we're not going to see a level of competition that we see in other industries like mobile phones, for example, where the customer is king, and and companies really fight over each and every customer. I don't think that's the case really, for the energy industry at this particular point in time, and that's something that the energy regulator needs to work on.
Matthew Osborne, Senior Energy Analyst at Inenco, thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.